Go ahead and talk.
Are we live?
Yep, we're live.
Okay, I think we're back in gear here. Welcome to Create with Chris. Whoop.
Oh. There you go.
All right, there I am. Hi, everybody. Finally, in addition to being a long time since we've been together last time, we had some little technical issues in the beginning. So hopefully that's all behind us and everything is go on our systems and working well, Lindsay? Are we looking good? Okay, today we are going to create, I got a thumbs up, this adorable gingerbread ornament. And if you remember, before we did the snowman and the Santa, so this will make a nice little set of 3 ornaments. So I'm glad you're with me today. Let me introduce myself. I am Chris Haughey. I am the owner and founder of Cupboard Distributing, the Scrapbook Outlet, CD Stencils, Pixelate Palette, and Chris Haughey Designs. Been doing this for a long time. Love to paint, love to share, love to teach. So with all this new technology, it opens so many doors and makes it really exciting since we're all homebound this year and things aren't normally like they should be. We can at least stay connected through technology. And I think my mom's supposed to be out there today. So Mom, if you're out there, hi Mom. Glad you could join us. Alrighty, so I hope you all had a chance to get your ornament, and I do apologize for the delays. We just had one thing after another. We did have an exciting summer fest. I invited Sandy McTeer to teach with me, and it turned out to be a wonderful event. So if you missed out on Summerfest, you don't need to worry because I invited Sandy again to teach with me for Christmas Fest. And I've got a little thing here. So mark your calendars, October 23rd and 24th. We've got some fantastic projects. It's going to be a great time. We have a lot of fun scheduled. You don't want to miss out. So go to www.cdwood.com. And I think it's right there. Okay, and check on Christmas Fest, and you can sign up for these classes. A lot of techniques, and we love to share the techniques. So if you join it, one thing nice about the classes online, they are videotaped also. So even after the class is over, you do receive a copy of the class. So if you fall behind in class or for some reason the other can't make the time, and I know we had people joining from all over, actually all over the world, and with all the different time zones, sometimes that creates a problem. But with the recordings and the video, you know, you can watch it anytime. So if you can't join or if it's too early, you can still sign up. You'll get all the information. You get a recorded classroom, almost as good as being there. Plus you can paint in your jammies, and what's better than that? Don't have to lug all your stuff, walk miles to the restroom. We all know that game. So this offers a great way for us to stay connected in our fantastic fun painting world. Okay, let's get ready to start painting. I'm going to switch over here. We are going to be doing this guy today. And if you have your ornaments and you're ready to paint with us, I did have you all base coat this. What I did, this is an MDF piece, and it is actually a wood product, so I treat it the same way as I would any wooden surface. I do seal it, and I use the DecoArt multi-purpose sealer, and then I put a couple coats of light buttermilk on there to get a really smooth, solid base, and used a couple coats of that. I did lightly sand it afterwards just to make sure that it's super, super smooth. A couple reasons for that: you want to keep your brushes pristine. If you have a nice smooth surface, your brushes are going to last even that much longer. So it's worth the extra time. Now, look at this guy. We're just going to start out with the gingerbread. We want to create that, but we don't want to get it up in this part or down here. And we could go ahead and put the gingerbread on and go back and touch it up. But I'm not a very patient person. I like to be able to do things easily. So if you just take a piece of painter's tape, put it over there, and a little piece down here, you're going to save yourself a lot of grief later on, because you won't have to go back and touch that up. Just want to make sure that you get a nice, right here in the corners, you want to make sure that that goes straight across. You don't want it above or below, because there again, you're just going to create a little more work for yourself. I'm going to tear some of that off because I know what's going to happen. It's going to stick, and then I'm going to be stuck to the table. Don't want to do that. Okay, so we've got that on there. Now, to create the gingerbread, I could go ahead and I use a technique with a sponge, but to do a nice soft gingerbread texture, I'm going to base coat it with camel first. And this is Deco Art Americana. Make sure you shake it up well if it's been sitting for a while. Sometimes it doesn't even take long for it to separate. Using my 3/4 inch oval mop, this is the most beautiful brush I've ever used. Fantastic. It's going to put on a smooth, even coverage. And it's just fantastic to work with. The brushes are a little bit soft, and I wasn't sure when I first got the brush if it was going to be as great as what everyone said, but I'll tell you what, I do love this brush. And it puts on a super, super smooth coat. You don't get those brush lines because the bristles are so soft. Almost feels like a makeup brush. It's that gentle. And because it's so soft and gentle, it's going to lay the paint on there nice and smooth. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to talk about sponges. I am using a sea wool sponge. And sponges come in a variety of textures, and you can get the super smooth ones or you can get the open ones. The wool means that it has more open texture. For this type of gingerbread that I want to create, I want that texture. Now I will give you a little heads up. If you have a cat, they really like the smell of this. I think it has a fish smell to it. Lindsay's over there shaking her head. When we had cats, I always had to find them. They would take them and hide them. So I had a little box I had to put on and snap the lid shut because the cats kept carrying my sponges off. But these make a beautiful textured background. I use these a lot. Now to get the sponge ready, when it's dry, it's kind of hard. So I dampen it in and I've just scrunched it in my water bowl. And you can see there's water dripping out of it. I don't want it wet. So I'm just going to kind of smoosh it in a paper towel so it's super soft. Now, to create that gingerbread texture, make sure this is dry. I'm going to hit it with my little heat tool. And if you haven't used the heat tools from Ranger, oh my gosh, they're wonderful. Nice and quiet, and they dry super quick. Okay, to do the texture, I've got a little piece of paper. I want to show you some different things. I'm using honey brown and camel. And I'll put a little bit on there. And I've got a little bit of a UFO in here. It's from the top of the bottle. Make sure you get those out of your paint puddles because they can come back to haunt you. Want to get a fair amount of camel and a fair amount of honey brown. Shoot, and I didn't shake it. Just told you need to shake it and I didn't. So let me wipe that, get that out of here. Okay, we'll just pretend that didn't happen. All right, so we have honey brown and we have camel. Now I've got my sponge. I'm going to pick a spot. I kind of like this texture here. I'm going to kind of bunch it in my fingers so I have a good grab hold on it, but I want to let this fluffy part be the part that I use. I'm going to take half of it and put it in the honey brown and half of it in the camel. So I've got a double loaded sponge. And I'll just pounce that a little bit. And when you pounce it, you can see if one side's heavier than the other. And I think I need a little more honey brown. It looks a little bit light on that side. So up a little more honey brown, and I can pounce. All right. Now, when you pounce, make sure you don't twist it around and put the light side in the dark and get it all mixed up on your sponge. You want that little bit of separation on there. Now, if I just go ahead and pounce, and I'll do it on here to show you, I get a real sharp texture, which is beautiful. That almost looks like a fall tree. But what I want is to soften that. So I'm going to use a mister and lightly mist my surface before I pounce. Figure out where it's coming out. Now when I pounce, it should soften. See how much softer that is. You can tell a big difference. So we want this softness in there. So I am going to, before I begin, mist my gingerbread face, and then I'm going to pounce and turn and pounce and turn. Now you might say, well, you've already got camel in there, why do you need to add more camel? It just helps to blend and create that soft. Now don't twist your hand on the surface, lift it up and turn it. And the more you pounce, the softer it will become. Can you see how it's starting to soften up now? And I'll just keep pouncing until I think that looks pretty good. I have a nice mottled, and I can zoom in just a little bit so you can see the texture on that. See how soft that is. And we will let that dry. Just I'll hit it with my little heat gun. Now it does have a lot of moisture in it, so it takes just a little bit more for this to dry. And I was trying to think, if we do some other things while that dries, if we'll get in trouble. But I think it's going to dry rather quickly. The heat tool is pretty awesome. And it's pretty much dry. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Look how perfect that is. Oh. Let's go back out just a little bit. Look how nice that is. Oh my gosh, we've got just such a super crisp line. Now, while that's drying just a little bit more, I will tell you I do have a couple classes coming up, just to give me some time while this is drying. This is my fall harvest class. I'm teaching that this coming Saturday from 12 to 5. So there's still time to sign up. This is via Zoom. So if you've not taken a Zoom class yet, super easy to use. No problems at all. We had with our Summerfest, everything went really smooth. A lot of techniques, going to be a fun class. Okay. See, I slip a little ad in there while this is drying. Nice and dry. Now we have to get some shading in this. And we're going to start with light cinnamon. And we want to just bring a little bit around the top and the sides. Shake the paint, Chris. There we go. I'm using a 1/2 inch angle. If I can find my angle, here we go. And I do love the Josonia brushes. They're so nice. They last a long time. Believe it or not, I've been using this one for probably a good year, and it still looks brand new. As long as you clean them out and take good care of them, they're going to do quite well. I'm just going to load the toe of it up and blend it out on my brush so that I don't have heaviness on the edge, but I have it worked into the bristles, so I have a nice float on that. And I want to go across the top. I'm going to have a shade there, and bring it down the sides. And across the bottom. If you want to, you could have left your tape on there. If it makes it a little easier, whatever works well. And we'll just blend that up. And you notice I kind of do like a tap and pull. I don't just do a solid straight float. That gives a little more texture to that float instead of having it heavy or super smooth. I kind of like the way that looks with a little bit of, I call it a tap and a pull. And that's all and look at that. I mean, just like that, we've created that gingerbread and it really looks nice. Okay, I think we are going to wait to let that set up a little bit before we go back in the face. Let's go ahead and do some base coating on some of these stripes. My very favorite brush is my number 5 Radical Round. Just gonna grab some foliage green. See if I can do this without dragging my hand through it. I haven't painted, I'm at our store location, our warehouse, and I haven't painted since Christmas Fest, so a lot of my paint has separated. I kind of, you know, you don't think about things like that. So I'm just going to take and create all these sections just with a base color. And I like this Radical Round because I have a nice point on it, so I can pull it through, get a nice sharp edge. And then I can also use it to fill in and base coat if I press down. Very versatile brush. We like brushes that are versatile. And we'll just go ahead and put this one in here as well while we're waiting. And we could go ahead and just dry that a little bit, but we have a lot to do in a short time and we want to just kind of power through here. Now make sure if your brush drags, you add a little moisture to that. That's going to help you get a nice smooth line. It's going to help your paint to flow. And you don't want to overload your brush. You don't want those ridges on both sides. Just want a nice smooth little line on that. And everybody has a way that works best for them, either pulling towards yourself or pulling away, or left to right or right to left. Whatever works out easiest for you is what you need to stick with. And then down here, I'm gonna do. Now you notice I did a cross for the border, but when I did the part that goes up and down, I am gonna switch my brush and go up and down. And I think I got a little bit of gingerbread on that, but that is easily covered up. Okay, let's go back to the face. Now I did do a little pattern. I run these are vellum sheets that you get in a package and you can run them through the printer. So I can just take my line drawing and run it through the printer and I get a really nice line drawing very quickly. Normally I don't trace on the face, but I thought I would show you today if you want to trace it on, how easily that can be done. So I've got it lined up. I'm just going to slip my graphite paper in here. Make sure it's right side up or right side down so you don't waste your time. I'm going to do the eyes and the nose. And I want to show you the reason I do that. I can almost see those. To paint the eyes, I'm going to be using my painter's pal, and this is a little tool I created not too long ago after I got frustrated with trying to make everything the same size. And I sort of kind of figured out if I had a template to do that, it would make it so much easier. I'm using my Spectacular stencil brushes. These have a super soft bristle, which is going to give you a very soft, almost an airbrush stencil. I don't like the heavy, scratchy bristles. I like a soft bristle. I'm going to work that paint. This is soft black. Work that paint into my bristles. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time making sure it's loaded well, but not really heavy on the tips. Paper towel here, just so I don't have any surprises. I want to make sure I get any excess off. Now I like my eyes to tilt in just a little bit. Since I put that line drawing on there, I know exactly where my little eyes go, and I can pop that in there and I'm gonna wipe it off real quick. Find my other little eye. Like I said, I can almost see it. And I can stencil that one in there as well. Perfect, just like that. This is a great little tool to have. Oh my gosh, it'll save you hours with little round berries, candies, bubbles, any kind of oval eyes, noses. It's just a fun little tool. Now, with my stencil brush, is another reason that I love this so much is that you can just wash them out and go to your next color. So we'll drop down to the nose, and Lindsay, are you gone in the office?
Yes.
Would you get my glasses? I always forget my glasses. Using melon. And the reason I want to base coat with melon is because red is not a very opaque color, and you can drive yourself crazy trying to get a bright red or a solid red with just using red. So I can go with a melon base coat. Let me figure out what size I want. This little guy right here. And we'll just base coat that with melon. Now, if you don't get that excess off your brush, you could end up with it running under the edges and you don't have a nice crisp edge. We've all done that, haven't we? So this will just give us a nice crisp edge on that. Thank you. And I think my eyes are dry enough now. I'm going to go back with my little 1/8 inch awesome angle. I'm going to grab a little bit of Snow White. I want to go back to the eyes. Oh my goodness, my paint is not only, it's sealed shut. And I did have the lid snapped on it, so I'm not sure how that happened. Just going to get a little touch of Snow White on the toe of my awesome angle. You don't want this real heavy. We want to create, you see that little bit of a highlight in the eye? Just gives that little bit of wetness in there. So I'm going to scoop it along the bottom and up this left side. Am I on camera? No. I'll just get a little bit of highlight in there. And you know what happens when you add that little sparkle in the eyes? Goodness, I gotta stay over here. I want to bring just a little bit of highlight, just a touch in the top left of each eye. They're gonna really sparkle.
Can you move it on camera a little more?
It is now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we did the soft black, a little float of Snow White, and then a sparkle on the eyes. And I should have waited on that because I don't want to smear that. So let's go back to the soft black. And I've got my Epic Script liner. If you're looking for a really good, amazing liner, this 18-knot script liner is wonderful. And we'll just pop in a couple little eyebrows. You know, the direction of the eyebrows make the personality. They can, too much forward, they're going to be kind of mad. Too much to the side, he'll look a little bit sad. And a couple little eyelashes. No more than 3. 2 or 3. And let's give him a little happy mouth.
You look so jolly.
Aww. just like that. He's so happy little guy. Okay, let's see if those little eyes are dry. I think so.
Happy little ginger.
I'm going to go back with watermelon slice. If you have another red, we're having trouble with getting some of the colors from Deco Art right now. So if you have another red, berry red, is that the one that
Yeah, that's the new one.
is a newer one that's really looks nice and festive? And pick up just a little bit of that watermelon slice on my stencil brush. Put that stencil right over top, and we'll just go back and top coat. Ta-da! Just that easy. And while we're doing that with the watermelon slice, I'm going to take my brush and get all that moisture out. I went ahead and cleaned it, and I should not have. Get moisture out. I'm going to load it with watermelon slice, and just going to get that excess off of there. I'm going to go with the biggest stencil. And actually, I think I'm going to go up to a bigger stencil brush. Sometimes when your stencil brush is too small, you're going to end up getting maybe just like a little spots, and we want it to be very soft. And I'm a kind of a messy painter, and I know what I do. So I'm going to, you see this little place right here? I'm going to cover that up because I know I'll probably get paint on it. And start dry brushing those cheeks. Now I do kind of an X shape until they start looking, because otherwise if you go in a circle, do you ever get a hole in the middle? You don't want that. Now they're always a little bit darker than what they look like when you have this on them. So we'll go ahead and put that on. Get this one over here. Do the same thing, that little X, and then go around. Lift it up and see if it's the same intensity. That's what you want. Just like that. Now this is dry, and I did use that graphite paper around the eyes, and I see some of that on the noses, kind of, some of those lines are showing, so I'm going to gently lift this out right now. Okay, before we go any further, I'm going to add just a little bit of shading to make his features kind of settle in his face instead of look like they're painted right on front of it. We have a lot of light and dark in that gingerbread. So watch what happens. I've got my 1/4 inch angle. Just going to pick up a little bit of light cinnamon. I'm going to float under his nose. And under his mouth. And if you hear the noise in the back, I am at our warehouse, and we just got a semi came in, so we had to unload it, and so they've got the forklift running, so they should be finished shortly. Because I want a little more control under the eyes, picking up some light cinnamon on my 1/8 inch angle, and I want to really kind of put a little bit of a float under there. Now be careful, if you get too much under his eyes, he starts to look a little bit sick. So I'm going to take some of that down. It's kind of heavy.
What would a good substitute be for light cinnamon?
If you don't have light cinnamon, you could go with probably raw sienna. Let's see. Maybe burnt umber might be better. I think raw sienna might be too light. Okay, see how that sinks the features in? And don't forget his little eyebrows. Just this little bit of paint makes such a big difference.
Someone asked if that was a new type of eraser you were using.
Okay, this eraser, I'm not sure where I found it. This is from our local bank, and it's probably 20 years old. So No, I wouldn't recommend this one. I was kind of worried when I used it that it might lift the paint because um, you know, it's one of those things you always have. So I would use that white soft
Soft oval.
general pencil. Yeah, the soft oval is what I normally use. And I grabbed this because I couldn't find my other one, and it was white, so I figured it should work. So no, you can't find that one. It's not new. It's extremely old, and I'm not sure I would recommend it. If you're using an eraser you're not sure about, be very gentle, because with the paint being kind of just freshly applied, it could lift it right off. I'm going to lighten that eyebrow just a touch. Alrighty. We need to work on that little nose a bit more. Gosh, he's coming really quickly, isn't he? And I am picking up deep burgundy, and my 1/8 inch angle. Just gonna float that right under his nose. I like his nose to be really rosy. And the deep burgundy, I'm not sure, deep burgundy and the watermelon slice look so nice together, and just makes that, look how, what a Christmas red that has become. Just absolutely so pretty. And for those of you that don't do the comma stroke thing yet, this is a super easy way to add a little highlight. Just gonna get my stylus and Snow White, dip, dot, and drag it over. Perfect little comma stroke every single time. I was surprised not a lot of people know that, so it'll make your life a little easier. Add a couple of Snow White dip dots on the cheeks. There we go. Look at his happy little face. Oh my goodness. Just like that. I'm going to just a little bit. Oops. Okay, there. I wanted to go out just a little bit more. Now, see above his nose how dark that is? If you're not a fan of that, just go in. And I've got my 1/4 inch angle. I picked up a little bit of camel. And you can just go in and just kind of tap over that to lighten it. So if you get a dark spot on his face, don't worry about it. You can just brighten it up with a little bit of a lightness over that. And because it's so light, it's going to show through. You're still going to get a little bit of that darkness, but it just basically tones it down. Let's add some little pretty icing around his forehead. And we will use light buttermilk. And I know the icing's white, but we'll start out with light buttermilk. That gives us the opportunity to add a few highlights on there as well. Got my radical round. I'm loading it so I just have the toe of it. I'm going to press down and add some icing here. Almost didn't give enough room for the icing. His face is a little bit high. Alrighty, we got that on there. Let that dry. We're going to just jump around a little bit. Let's go down to the little candy down here on the corner of his face. A little cheeks dry, yes. And remember how we did his nose? We did melon first to give it that nice opaque base. Doing the same thing with the little gumdrop candy. Put a nice base of melon on that. Make sure that you clean your brush before you wipe it on a paper towel to get that excess off before you do your circle, or you'll get that run under. While we're down there, let's go back to the foliage green and add a couple leaves.
Marianne Eversole says he looks like Papa John.
He looks like Papa John. Happy guy, huh? Now Papa John would like to be eating the gumdrop candies. Just a little This is almost a football shape. And these are candies, so no, they don't have to be perfect. I like to have a little point on the end though. Get a nice base on that. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll just hop around like crazy here. Let's go ahead and I have melon, and I'm going to just base coat this. This is what I call the icky stage. These colors on here. Now, if you feel uncomfortable about trying to paint straight lines, by all means put a piece of tape on there, and then you can just very easily paint that. Whatever makes your painting life easier, don't be afraid to do that. I'm okay with short distances, but if I get a little bit of a longer span, I will revert to tape because I want it to look nice. And there's nothing wrong with using some helper tools to accomplish that. Okay, let's get a little bit in here. I don't have enough moisture on my brush. If you struggle with sliding your brush to move the color, you don't have enough moisture on there. One more up here, I think. Oh yeah, see, I added more moisture to my brush. What a huge difference. And we'll get this edge cleaned up here. Now you don't have to worry so much about these edges because we have a lot of shading and a lot of things to do in there as well. So don't be too hard on yourself about the fussy parts that don't show. It just creates a little more stress for you that you don't need. This is what we do for fun, so make sure you enjoy it. And if you struggle with something, there's probably a better way to do it. So you can work on that to get a little bit of relief if you have problems with something. Going back to my stencil brush and watermelon slice. Yes.
Someone wants to know what they would sub for melon and also foliage.
For melon, there's a lot of colors. Vintage pink. Is it bright salmon? DecoArt has so many new pinky colors that are just absolutely gorgeous. Coral blush. Any of the bright, you just need a brighter pink color to go under there.
And then would it be Hauser medium?
Hauser light green would work for foliage green. Hauser medium's just a tone darker. Okay, so we've got our top coat on the gumdrop.
Becky says, I love this series of ornaments you've made, very cute and festive.
Oh, thank you, Becky. Thank you for joining me. This is fun to paint together, and you know, sometimes we don't realize how quickly we can create a project, and when you sit down and actually just sit down to do it, it goes very fast, and you think, oh, that wasn't nearly as hard as I thought. So it's fun to get together and to do something, and I know we're going through this kind of fast, but really not really rushing, so it does fly by.
Mary says she loves this little guy.
Oh, Mary, thank you. She loves a little guy. He is fun, and every time I paint my little gingerbread guys, they make me smile. Okay, I have a little bit of plantation pine. I want to deepen these leaves, and I'm just going to go along the bottom edge, have my 1/8 inch angle. I'm just going to really make those green. This is Christmas, so we want those colors to shine. And the foliage green almost acts the same as the melon. It just gives you a good base to build that green leaf on. And if you paint with plantation pine very much, you know it's almost a little bit translucent. So it doesn't cover over top of things well. Okay, I've got a little bit of a bump down here, and I'm going to use my Mono Zebra eraser, whether the paint's dry or whether it's wet, you can use this, and it is an eraser, but if you stick it in water and get a little bit damp, it will remove dry paint. And it doesn't matter if it's been dry for an hour, a day, a month, or a year. You can still remove that dry paint. So you just get moisture on it, and you go in there and you just do a little bit of a gentle rub, and it will lift the paint off. If you get really aggressive, it'll take it right down to the bare wood. But this is a super handy tool, and you can see by all the paint that's on it that I use it often. It's just kind of a little safeguard. It cleans things up, and you don't have to worry so much about, oh no, I made a mess. No, it's okay. All right, let's go back to the gumdrop. Make it a little more Christmassy. I have deep burgundy and my awesome angle, and I'm just gonna swoop a little bit around the bottom. And I'm kind of generous with this color of shading because I think this makes it look so Christmassy red, and I love that brightness. Now, what makes this so cute? We're going to add some sugar on that. And I'm using my stylus. I'm going to go in with Snow White, and we're going to add some sugar sprinkles on our gumdrops. And I like to randomly dip, so my dip dots are not all in a row. I'm just gonna hop around. And what that does, it kind of disperses the size of the dots, so you don't have big, smaller, 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 smaller. You know, it just gives a nice variation on size. So we'll just kind of, and I'm gonna kind of keep them on the top and the left side. That's where my light source is. See how that gives some random dip dots? Let's go in just a little bit more. There we go. And we'll just add a few more here. And same thing on the leaves. They're going to be a little bit brighter on the top. So I'm going to get my stylus and just put some sprinkles on there. Make sure you don't have it like half. You know, you kind of want to jump around a little bit so it doesn't looks a little more random and sprinkled. And we'll put one right there, just to kind of break it up. And maybe okay, not too much, not too little, just right. It's the baby bear story. Let's go back to
Julie wants to know whatever you're using to take off paint. Is that the stylus?
That's a mono zero eraser is what I use to take off paint. It has an itty bitty tip on it, a little rubber tip eraser. It does work to remove tiny graphite lines, and I should have used it on his little nose when I was removing those lines, but it's usually my go-to when I have a little smudge of paint somewhere that I want to lift up. It works wonders, absolutely wonders. Okay, now remember when we did his eyes, we had that little bit of shading of light cinnamon just below. We're gonna do the same thing with these little icing drops up here. I'm gonna scoop a little bit of light cinnamon right below and around to the bottom side up here. All of a sudden they're kind of starting to really settle down in that gingerbread cookie. And we'll get one over here. So we've got the shadow there, so we have to highlight the other side. Now I don't think you're going to see this on camera, but boy, it really brightens it up. This is Snow White. We're just going to highlight down this left side and across the bottom. Let that really resonate and be a highlight. Nice strong colors. And I'm going to pick up little Snow White and just fine tune that one just a bit. Okay. Gonna go out just a little bit here. Maybe. I've got my camera in this holder and it makes it hard to. Well, okay, I guess we're stuck here for a bit. We'll just move around. Okay, so we have his face, I think is finished. My goodness, we're just chugging right along here. Let's go ahead and start working on his candy stripes. And I am using, this is a number 4 flat. And the reason I'm using a number 4 flat is because that is exactly the size of these stripes. So if I pull them down with this brush and keep an even pressure, all of my stripes are going to be the same size. Now, because this is on a bright background, I don't need to do the melon base coat on it. I'm just going to go in with watermelon slice, load my brush. Make sure your brush is loaded well. You don't want to have a gob of paint on the sides or on the tip. So you work the paint into the bristles so it can just flow off of the brush. Now I want a little bit of a curve on these. The easiest thing to do is just start in the middle and pull that down. And then I can do my left side with a little bit of a curve. Take your time, keep an even pressure, and the right one with a mirroring curve, just like that. Same thing down at the bottom. Start in the middle. Check how your brush is loaded. Make sure you have enough moisture. Do a nice even stroke. Start here. And same thing over here. Just like that. Now, normally what I do when I do a peppermint stripe is put a couple stripes in it, but we have a real tight area, so one little tiny line in between is going to be sufficient. And when you thin out watermelon slice, it gets kind of pinkish. So to do the tiny stripes, I'm going with deep burgundy and my Epic script liner. I know when I thin that out, I'm still going to have a nice strong line, and I can create those peppermint stripes really easily. And put one over here. There we go. You know when that brush is loaded just right. I need a little more moisture in here. If you have to reload, make sure you check that you don't have that little drop on the end. Okay, so we've got our candy stripes on there. Let's go back to these pink stripes and make them look not so hideous, and pick up a little bit of watermelon slice using my radical round, and we'll just top coat those. And everybody's going to go, oh, thank goodness. Again, if your brush is dragging, a little more moisture on your brush. That is the secret. 2 light coats, always better than 1 heavy coat. Take your time, let the brush do the work, don't push it. Let the paint flow off of the bristles. Let it be nice and smooth. You don't want to see brush marks. If you see brush marks, your paint's probably too heavy. smooth it on. This is where you have to be careful. Don't put the heel of your hand in the other stripe down below here. All right. Now let's go in and do something with those green stripes. Using my 1/4 inch angle for this top part. And I want to really make that green. Maybe not that green. Let me pull some of that off. And you know, if your paint is moist, you can really move it around and work with it until you get it just like you want. So even if you put it on and it's too heavy, clean your brush and lift some of it off. It doesn't have to stay that way. I can use my 1/4 inch angle to do this next stripe, but I'm going to go with my 1/8 inch because it's a smaller area and I need a little tighter control. And the reason I like my 1/8 inches, it's a lot longer in length, which allows me to create a longer, smoother stroke without having to reload. And for something like this, you want to be able to go from one end to the other without picking up more paint. That's probably a little light, so I may go back and put another coat on that. It's better to just wait than try to put it over top because you're going to lift it off and put more on, and you know that story. Back and forth until you're about ready to pull your hair out. Just a little more up here. This is where you get to clean up those edges. So this is where you take a little more time, make sure they are nice and straight. Again, I'll probably go back and add just a little more color. Maybe not. We'll see what it looks like. Go down here at the bottom and do the same thing. I'm going to put you see how my brush is running out. Don't try to force your brush. If you run out, just reload. You can go back and blend that in. And we'll keep that on the light side. I'd rather go back and put that second coat on than try to figure out how to clean up a mess. I like that one. It's a little bit shorter, so I was able to lay down more paint. Now, on this bottom one, it's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to jump back to my 1/4 inch angle on that one. Want to shade along the top and then down this right side. So we can clean this up and down this right side. And I got a little bit heavy right there. Pretty good. While that's drying, I can go back and add my little line work details. And this is with plantation pine, and I'll just use my Epic script liner and drop in some comma strokes. There's a hole there, so we'll just pretend it's not. And put one in there. Do a little bit of line work here on this top ridge. I should have spaced this out just a little bit further. Then that paint, make sure that you can do quite a few lines before you have to reload. Then you know your brush is probably loaded just about right. Keep the same pressure on it so your lines don't get any fatter. When you start running out of paint, you just reload. first instinct is to press down. That's not a good instinct. And let's do some comma strokes here. Now, because I use the same color for the line work as the shading, when I go back and add my second coat, it's just going to even enhance it more. I'm worried about doing, let's do a little more shading here. Let's go back to the red areas and deep burgundy. I have my 1/8 inch angle. Again, for these smaller stripes, I'm going to stay with the smaller brush, especially because I know those comma strokes are wet. Now here I have some open areas. I want to make sure that I clean up and have that edge nice and sharp. See how that straightened all that up? On this bigger stripe down here, I can bump up to the 1/4 inch angle, whatever you feel comfortable with. And just load the toe. And straighten that line up nice and even. If you have a little bit of overpainting or underpainting, this is where you clean all that up. Now we want to go into this candy cane stripe as well. Put a little bit right here. Look what that does. Ooh ah ooh.
Can you move it down a smidge?
Okay. I'm going to keep that bright area in the middle, but shade the top and the bottom. Really makes that candy cane stand out. Go down here to the bottom. Do the same thing with the deep burgundy on these stripes. Still using my 1/4 inch angle because this is a bigger area. And I've got some white areas in there. I'm just going to go in and put a teeny bit of shading on there, just like that. They're all gone. Go in to do the top of this peppermint. And also I'm going to clean my brush and a little bit at the bottom, a smaller area. Okay. Now I did get a little messy down here, so I'm taking a little bit of light buttermilk. Take a minute. If you see something that's not right, you know, don't just let it slide. Fix it before it gets to be a problem. It'll haunt you if you don't. And you know what I'm talking about.
Someone said she uses your Painter's Pal stencil a lot. Thank you for creating it. It's really handy.
Oh, I'm glad you like my Painter's Pal stencil. I'm working on
A sequel.
a sequel, yes. Hopefully that'll be available soon. This is a little uneven up here. These are things I'm talking about. I can go back. Just straighten that up. I think I like the shading on the green. I think that looks sufficient. I'm going to add some dip dots on there. I usually do 2 before I reload because you don't want them to start changing their sizes. And 2 will probably work out pretty good. Okay, down here, I'm going to put another float on that because it needs just a little bit more. So I can go back, add just a hint on there. See the difference? Oh my gosh, that looks so much better. A little bit of paint, huge difference. I'm so glad we're finally getting together for this little gingerbread. He's been waiting, his other friends been waiting on him all summer. Oh, see what a difference that made. That's, you know, just a little bit made a huge difference. Let's go ahead and add some dip dots on the white, and then we'll be finished up here. And hopefully I won't stick my hand in the wet dip dots. And there. Isn't that pretty? Really brightens him up. And let's go down here. Same thing on this bottom one. And can you see the difference between this one with the extra shading? It just really needs it. So if it looks a little messy or weak or whatever the term you want to use, you probably need to go back and put just a little bit more shading on that. And I can clean that bottom edge up. Look how nice that makes it, yeah. It just wasn't looking all that good, so we can make anything look good. And if push comes to shove, we all have sandpaper. Okay, see up here on the top, it's a little bit light. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of that plantation pine and just go back and kind of, I'm using the chisel edge in the toe of my brush just to sharpen that up and make that not so light. It just takes that little bit. More dip dots on the white down here. And there we go on that. Oh, he's looking so cute. Switch over to green and we'll do this little, again on this one I think it looks good with no more shading on that. Same thing on this one. Alrighty, so we need to put these little bits of decorative greenery on there. And I am using foliage green and plantation pine. I tried to do these comma strokes in the foliage green and they were too bland. I tried to do them in plantation pine and they were too dark. So I double loaded my Epic script liner with plantation pine and foliage green. And can you see just a little bit of variation in the color? Sometimes that's all it takes, just that little bit of paint. So I load my brush, one side in plantation pine, and the other side I'll lay into foliage green. Make sure you have a fresh puddle of paint. So I've got, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can, just a little bit. If I turn it, it gets dark, and I turn it the other way, it gets light. So I can start making my comma strokes. And I'm going to press it down and just, I reload after every set. Maybe I don't need to. Okay. The little berries are watermelon slice, and I want them to be big enough that I can really see them. So use the big end of your stylus. Yeah, if you lift up too fast, you're going to get a little dot that's a little berry that's not round. Okay, so I think, there we go. Looky there. He looking good? Woo! We were like speed painting.
It was an hour.
An hour. All right, but wait, there's more. So, you know, he is adorable, and he looks really happy with his little friends here. But I always think with gingerbread, he has to have a little bit of sparkle on him. So what I did is added a little bit of the Glamour Dust. If you've not used Glamour Dust before, oh boy, you're missing the boat big time on this. This is Crystal Glamour Dust from Deco Art, and it's just a powdery fine sparkle. It's almost an opalescent sheen to it. Can you see the sparkle I put on the, it's so hard on, oh there we go. I think I'm catching a little bit. I did the,
Yeah, you can see.
the leaves and the gumdrop candies, and then I put a little bit on his icing on his forehead. Now, you don't need a lot, but a little bit just like adds that wow factor. And sometimes when I'm painting at home, I'll ask John, my husband, I'll say, I know it needs something. He'll say, Glamour Dust. So to put the Glamour Dust on, I use Starlight Varnish. This is a varnish with a little bit of glitter mixed into it. No, you don't have to use Starlight Varnish, but in my mind, a little sparkle in it helps the sparkle a little bit more. So I do use the Starlight Varnish, and let me just put a little bit on. I do this after I put my finished spray on. I'll go ahead and show you because I want to be sure and get that on here. You can use the stencil to I'm afraid this is not dry. Yep, it's dry. Okay. So I can put my little stencil down and take my stencil brush and just tap some varnish on there. And you can use regular varnish. You just need something that this Glamour Dust is going to adhere to. And I'm going to use my tracing as a backdrop. Lightly sprinkle. Can you see that sparkle on there? Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I hope it shows up. So on the little bit on his forehead, just the same thing. We'll just add a little bit there and there. This is just the varnish. Take a little bit of the Glamour Dust. Just lightly sprinkle over that. It doesn't take much. It's just absolutely stunning.
It really shows up well on the camera.
Oh, good. And don't forget those leaves. It just, you know, takes them from plain to pizzazz. If you get too much, then it's too much and it doesn't have that impact. But just that little bit. Look at that, how he sparkles. He is one happy guy.
Noreen wants to know, how would you finish the back?
On the back, normally what I do is I paint the side edges with the soft black, and I can show you this one is a little messy. So I use my finger to clean these edges up. And you need to think of your finger as a tool. And I'm getting a little bit of black paint. I did dampen my finger, and if it takes 2 coats with a brush, it'll take 2 coats with your finger. But gently glide it across, and you'll get a nice, perfect edge on that very, very quickly. None on the front, none on the back. Now, I would recommend on the back side, there's a couple things you can do. I like to paint it the same color as I do the sides, and then you can use like a white gel pen or paint a sentiment on the back, or just leave it unfinished. But the back side's a really great place to add a message or the date or something special.
Sharon would like to know, could you use multi-purpose sealer instead of a varnish?
Yes, you may use multi-purpose sealer instead of a varnish. That would work. Anything that's going to adhere and dry. Something that the Glamour Dust can stick to. So, any more questions? So, I hope you had fun painting with me today. We went rather quickly, but again, one of the benefits of being able to do things online is the fact that you can play the videos over and over again. So you can keep this on file and finish up your gingerbread ornament. If you would do me a favor, I would love to see them finished. So When you get finished painting them, take a minute to put it online. Everybody enjoys seeing what you do, and it also is encouraging for other painters as well to, you know, to share, and they like to encourage you as well also. Yes.
Becky wants to know ribbon or string.
Ribbon or string or gold cording, anything. I love the red and white baker's twine. I think that's a fun hanger to put on, especially with the little bits of peppermint on here. It just adds that much more decoration to it. So, okay, I think we're about ready to wrap up. Don't forget, if you get a chance, you can sign up for our my Zoom classes at Cupboard Distributing. There's a button for Zoom classes. I've got a couple coming up. Also, don't forget Christmas Fest over here. Christmas Fest, October 23rd. Lots of fun things on the horizon. Hopefully we'll be able to be connected again next week, and I'll have a surprise for you. So until we meet again, happy painting. Bye-bye.